Good evening. Yes, a little call and response. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm Dr. Semente. I'm the Curator of Education and Public Programs at the Davis Museum, and I am thrilled to welcome you to the second Artist Roundtable. Can y'all hear me well? Nice. To the second Artist Roundtable for the exhibition In Focus, Wellesley College Faculty Artists, and to our Spring 2026 opening celebration. Woo! Yes. So at 5 p.m., we warmly invite you to our party to the Davis lobby and galleries, where you can visit 3 new exhibitions in addition to those remaining on view. In Focus, The Worlds of Ilsa Bing and Suzanne Ciani's Sound Lounge. Only to be there, one of our new exhibitions, Student Traditions at Wellesley celebrates the lives that students have made for themselves and each other outside of the classroom since Wellesley was founded in 1875. Tonight is your chance to eat some traditional Wellesley fudge cake. Woo! And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're about to find out. So exciting that Life magazine covered it. We are reopening our galleries dedicated to modern and contemporary art on level 5 this evening. In addition to familiar favorites, there are surprises from the Davis collection that you may have never seen before. And finally, we're proud to open the Immortal Magu, a 16th century Chinese painting up close. Get to know the Taoist legendary beauty Ma Gu and learn about how this painting was conserved. It's amazing. If you arrive in the receptionette in time, you will receive one of these amazing feather boas from me and from our students to honor Ma Gu's luxurious feathered cape. Yes, it's very exciting. The Davis Museum is proud to continue our tradition of hosting the art department's faculty artist work every 5 years, and we're especially excited that it overlaps with Wellesley College's 150th celebrations this year. I'm especially grateful for another semester of teaching with In Focus and for the many insightful conversations that the work has sparked with students and with public visitors that I've experienced last semester. It's been wonderful. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Nicole Berlin, Associate Curator of Collections and the Curator of In Focus, who will introduce our panel of faculty artists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Semente. It has been a pleasure to host these roundtable discussions with you, and I look forward to our final roundtable on March 3rd here in Collins Cinema. And yes, that is a plug for encouraging you to come to the 3rd iteration of the Artist Roundtable on March 3rd in this auditorium. I first want to celebrate each of the artists I've had the privilege of working with over the last few years for this exhibition. Catherine Barbanel, Genevieve Cohn, Claudia Joskowicz, Katia Landeros, Phyllis McGibbon, Andrew Mowbray, Daniela Rivera, Katherine Ruffin, and Daniel Tang Olson. Presented as part of Wellesley's anniversary celebration, In Focus recognizes 150 years of faculty excellence at the college. Our colleagues exhibit their work around the world, and we are fortunate to host this exhibition here in our Chandler and Bronfman galleries. This exhibition is generously supported by the Mellon Academic Program Fund, the June Feinberg Stamen Class of 48 Art Fund, and the Wellesley College Friends of Art at the Davis. I also want to thank the Davis team members who made this exhibition a reality. I'm particularly grateful to Senior Manager of Exhibitions and Collection Preparation, Mark Beeman, Associate Registrar for Exhibitions and Digital Resources, Helen Connor, and Assistant Preparator, Nell Gould, for their expertise and collaboration through the exhibition process. It's now my pleasure to introduce tonight's panelists. Claudia Joskowicz, Associate Professor of Art, Daniela Rivera, Luella Slaner, Professor of Latin American Studies and Professor of Art, and Dr. Katherine Ruffin, Director of the Book Studies Program and Senior Lecturer in Art. I've had the distinct privilege of working with each artist as a curator, but that's only one part of this story. To truly understand the depth of these projects, it is essential to hear from the artists in their own words. They can speak to the life of these artworks, and the most vital insights come from the artists themselves. So, saying that, Claudia, I'd like to start with you. Could you introduce yourself by sharing the core themes that drive your practice and speak to the specific framework that you bring to your work? And we'll have everyone sort of speak to those questions by way of introduction.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. And thank you for hosting these panels. I loved listening to the other artists last time, so hopefully we'll do just as well. So I already forgot the question, but...
Core themes that drive your practice and speak to the framework that you bring to your work. So a bit about your work.
So my work, I usually work with video, the moving image, and installation. My background is in architecture, so this is how I approach everything I make through the built environment, the urban space, and really how people move in public spaces, and how these public spaces and just the built, like the fabric of cities, like tell stories about its past, and how these stories are then translated through some sort of mediated practice, such as like television, books, photography, and really how these stories are transformed through time. So that's like kind of globally speaking about my practice, not specifically about the work that's on view, but
We'll get there.
yeah.
Katherine, if you don't mind going next.
Very good. The work that I have in the exhibition is based on papermaking and letterpress printing in response to historical books from our very rich special collections in Clapp Library. And this series of broadsides, prints, responds to a number of books and also some archival manuscripts that we have in Clapp Library. And I've responded to those in collaboration with Jackie Mustachio from Art History, who's here with us this evening. And we started a collaboration in 2011. That continues today. We'll be making paper next week. And we're always working in response to special collections or archives materials. We're working with a group of students. We're working collaboratively in a team, really enacting the Wellesley method of hands-on experience in an art history setting, and thinking about how substrates for text and image were produced. And then we make an edition. We make a group of prints, and each of the students usually takes 2 away. So you're going to see some prime examples, the nicest examples from editions that we've made over the years, but there are also 50 or 60 other copies of those pieces that belong to Wellesley students and alums and are out there in the world.
And last but certainly not least, Daniela.
Hi. Okay. Hi. So thank you. Okay. So, general, not specific to the Davis Museum. The piece at the Davis Museum right now. I'm really interested in material meaning and processes, and I'm interested in how different processes and cultural migrates from one place to another, and meaning is change and mutates. And so I'm interested in how we build meaning. That's basically what I do with my practice.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So my first question is about education, or relevant to education. How do you navigate your dual roles as artists and as educators? And how do those identities inform one another? And anybody can start with this question.
I'm going to start because I was last. Okay, so they're one and the same. I think I'm a better artist because I teach, and I'm a better professor because I'm a maker. And a lot of the problems that are solved in the studio are brought into the classroom. A lot of the problems that many of the students have in the classroom are brought to the studio to be solved. So that sort of, there's a kind of, this perfect relationship. Also, and I've said it multiple times, I think the ones that learn the most in a classroom are not the students but the professors. Teaching is a collaborative endeavor. Everybody has responsibilities and agencies in the classroom, and there's a sharing thing that is constantly happening. So that happens, that we are getting a lot of that information constantly. And the other thing that happens, I think, that has informed my practice is because of Wellesley, because of my teaching practice, a lot of the work has become more and more social. and more based on community engagement. So it has transformed my practice being a teacher, an instructor.
You go. I'll go last.
Okay, we're reversing our order, I see. I think my answer is I don't really navigate my identities as a maker and as a teacher. It's all a big happy blur, and just whatever hour it is on whatever day in the week and wherever I am, I'm doing the work that I need to be doing, and often in collaboration, often learning a lot from the students and the other members of the college community. And we're so fortunate here to have such a resource-rich environment. And I went to Bryn Mawr, one of the other 7 sibling schools, for my undergraduate, and I was making books very badly on the floor of my dorm room as a Bryn Mawr student majoring in philosophy. And I didn't have anybody like Phyllis McGibbon or me or Megan Casella or Autumn Porter to help me, and I really floundered. And so one of my goals here at Wellesley is to be that person that I wish I'd had at Bryn Mawr, to help these wonderful, bright, engaged liberal arts students think and then make. So.
I don't think I can say it better than Daniela, but a lot of what she said also resonates for me personally. I think my students keep me on my toes and make me a better artist. They also, the process of teaching requires you to stay updated with technology, but also what's going on in the world and theory and readings, which I think, I know a lot of artists who don't teach, and it's really easy to get siloed into your studio and in conversation with your peers, and you sort of get stuck, sort of like your parents listening to the same album like 30 years later. I think that happens with artists too, and in their practice, and I think teaching kind of forces you outside of the studio and forces you to look to the wider world and what's happening there, and hopefully bring that into the classroom in conversation with its students. But collaboration, I think teaching at Wellesley actually has opened me up more to collaboration as well, forcing the students to, not forcing, but encouraging them to collaborate with each other in my classes has kind of made me see how I can go outside my own practice and collaborate. I'm kind of a control freak, so it's really good for me to do that.
I love that. I love that. The students keep me on my toes as well. Working in a museum that's on a campus is truly a gift. Can you speak a little bit to your relationship with materials, and maybe specifically the works that are in the show? What does your process look like from the first spark of an idea to a finished work? And at what point does it usually change course, if it does?
Okay, I've been nominated by my peers to go first. So the projects that I have on exhibition here often have started with that object in special collections, that historical rare book, and I'm going in with my student employee assistants, and we're looking at the book, we're touching the paper, we're thinking about what fibers might be in that paper that we can then mirror or respond to in the Pendleton West papermaking and screen print studio as we make pulp and then form sheets of paper. Then I'm collaborating with students in the Book Arts Lab in Clapp Library to set type. So we're trying to use the resources that we have in our museum quality collection of metal and wood type to mirror what's in those historical books. We're often reproducing woodcut images that are in the books using the college's laser engravers to cut into wood so we can print text and image together on the handmade paper. So a lot of the information flows from the books in special collections, and my special collections curators were very kind to loan some 16th, 17th, and 18th century books to the museum so you can see original books we were responding to in the exhibition. And we're really honoring those dead book makers of the past, those makers once known who labored in the paper mill or in the print shop who we don't have a lot of records about. We know the author, maybe we know the illustrator, but we're really trying to penetrate deeply into that ecosystem of historic bookmaking with these hands-on exercises. If you want to make paper with us here at Wellesley College, first week of April, April 6th through 10th, we're gonna feature Phragmites papermaking with the Paulson Initiative in the Davis Museum, and Dr. Semente was out harvesting Phragmites with me in the late fall, so come make paper.
April 8th.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's me. Your use of materials,
Okay.
especially in the works in this show, and I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about your
How
materials.
much time do we have?
Oh, exactly. As much as you want.
Because I'm a nerd. So I'm glad that we're talking just about this one, because the work at the Davis right now all starts with fresco painting, and all starts with mixing lime putty and sand, and that starts 2,000 years ago. So that's why I'm also asking how much time do we have. But for me, it starts in 2006. I mean, of course, we all know frescoes. We all know the Sixtine Chapel. We all know like the Mexican muralists and the use of fresco in a lot of different churches and cathedrals and other public spaces. But I got into fresco in 2006 when I went to Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, and they have a fresco barn, and everybody that goes there as an artist in residency is able to do frescoes for the first time. And I got fascinated by it. It's really fascinating. It's a process where the baby in that wall is actually a fresco. It's made with plaster. One of the things that fascinated me is that I was always looking for a painting that had a body, not just was just not surface. And this painting has a body. Like the pigment mixes with the lime. So I can go into this like forever, and it sort of binds and goes back, returns to its stone. The lime returns to its stone stage, and so it becomes this sort of painting with a body. It's not a surface. It's as fragile as glass, but it's as durable as glass. So you can have like 2,000-year-old frescoes that we just discovered one like a couple of years ago in the Andean region in Peru. And I mean, not me, other people. But so you have this thing that has a crazy history, and it can be damaged like glass. If it shatters, and you're done. The surface of the fresco is extremely fragile, but it can perdure for time. And also, it's a material that ages. So the more time it's alive, the stronger it gets. Different from humans, that we get brittle, these frescoes get stronger. So that's for the first fascination. Then the second fascination is human ingenuity, because this happens in different places at almost kind of at the same time, at different times, but without any contact. So we have frescoes in India, we have frescoes in Morocco, different types of techniques. We have frescoes in Mesoamerica, we have frescoes in Europe. And it takes a while to figure out how to make these. I mean, you have to burn a stone for hours, then you have to, sorry, this is too long? Okay, because you have to burn a stone for hours, then you have to like take it out and then hydrate it, and it kind of has a chemical reaction, and then you have to age that for at least 6 months in order to be able to use it. So you have this thing, like, and it's mainly created for making paintings, and for communication. And so I feel like every time I'm touching this material, I'm making these, I'm building these paintings with a body, I'm in touch and in dialogue with so many different generations of makers before me that actually are not specifically geographically located or culturally specific located, but they are kind of spreading all over the world. So specifically, so that's what I'm working with. That's the process I'm working with. And I thought, okay, how long does it take to, well, I'm actually just understanding the project now, to be quite honest, after it's been put up in the Davis and I'm seeing it. And now I understand, like, okay, like I needed to work with this word trust, and I used the typography, it's all handmade, so it's as close as I can get to the typography of the highway signs, as a direction. And get as close as I can with the pigments that are lime resistant to the Pantone color of the highway signs as a direction, and thinking of how long it takes to build trust, but how precious it is and how fast it can be completely disintegrated. So that's how I came up with the idea of kind of having this fresco made in this technique, specifically with the aggregates that were used in Central America 2,000 years ago. And then the photos that you see are me just going with this fresco around the Boston area and performing as the pole for the street sign, and as I go around, it gets more brittle and signs of usage start to appear. And then I thought that it was interesting to refer back to its object quality and to its body. So instead of just showing an image, turn the photographic image into an object. And so the photographs were also made. And then there's a flag in a box that also has a fresco, that also has the word trust. It's a really heavy flag. It's double-sided and with heavy fabric. So it takes a lot for that flag to fly. And there's another one made, and it's also not going to fly now because it's in a box, but there's another flag, its partner, that is very thin, that would get completely disintegrated when it flies. So one that has a hard time flying and another one that, kind of goes away very fast. So that's what you're seeing. Okay, done.
Speaking of a body, I work with time and light, so there's like nothing really physical to work with. There's no materials, like as opposed to everything that Daniela just described. But of course, my work is also deals with how the work is presented and how the public interacts with it. So focusing on the time and light aspect of it, I come from, my work is heavily influenced by a movement of like experimental film, which is the structuralist school of filmmaking, which focused on films really being about that is, about what is being used to make the film. So the camera, the light. What are these, like, really focusing on the language of film and how making that the main point of the work. However, I think we go to films to like also see stories. So there is kind of an attention to how we tell stories, but not in the traditional sense. So not in like the narrative film kind of sense. How do these images that are composed of time and light tell stories? And then how these stories are received by the public, and how do you encourage the audience to interact with it when there's no linear story being told? So going back to the architecture, this piece specifically that's at the Davis is a two-channel piece where one camera is focused on, it presents us a spectacle, a female wrestling match in Bolivia, where I'm from, in the city of El Alto, which is the youngest and most economically growing, or fastest economically growing city in Latin America. And it's a very new city, and it has like sprung a new type of architecture that is indigenous and yet also claims to recognize the city's indigenous roots, but it's also very heavily influenced by outside influences that have come into the country in the last 20 years, which is China, Russia, and a lot of commerce between all these countries. Anyway, the match is the main focus of the story, but the background it's set in one of these crazy buildings that are specifically unique to this region. And for me, I wanted to present all of this as how the performative, how both buildings and the wrestlers perform some sort of identity that tell a story about the history of the country, tell a story about what's been happening in this country economically, socially, politically, and it's way too much to talk about here, but it's also it's a very violent spectacle, right? Wrestling is supposed to be a farce. We all know it's a farce, but yet the violence that you're seeing on the screen is real, and it is. It happens between women, which I think is something to think about, and how Indigenous pride is presented to the public, so that's why one one camera is focusing on the match, but I intentionally filmed it to where the actual match is not in focus completely. So you see fragments of the match, and you hear the thumps on the stage, and you know what's happening, but it's not the main focus. And the focus of the camera is actually on the building and behind them. However, the second camera is focused on the audience, which is an audience that is mostly Western, tourists, and white Bolivians, and their reaction. And that camera is focused on the audience, and it's very kind of medium shot or almost close up. So I wanted to, instead of making a judgment or trying to teach anything, I just wanted to present that. And then for me, like, the role of the artist is to sort of react to what's happening in the world at the moment and communicate it somehow, and not necessarily anything else beyond that. So.
Thank you so much. We're going to go from the present day back in time. And our next question is, what is it that brought you to your art practice? What is it that brought you perhaps to Wellesley College? I think oftentimes understanding how folks got where they are is a really important part of the story.
Sorry, we did hear the question.
We did hear it.
We
Sorry.
were wrestling with water.
I really needed water.
Oh, okay. So I start. Okay. To my practice in Wellesley College, or to my how I got to Wellesley, because I was teaching in another place and I was very miserable. And I was teaching in another place that was very miserable. And then all of a sudden there was a call for a position at Wellesley, and actually a mentor sent me a message and said, "You need to apply to this position." I was like, yeah, whatever. That's not going to happen. And interestingly, I knew about Wellesley College. I mean, I'm new to the country and I was new to the region when I was this position was happening. But I had come to this same place, to the Collins Cinema, to see, to be in a talk of Liliana Porter with Jay Oles. And that was my first time coming to Wellesley College. And I was like, what is this place? Right? And there's this super animated conversation, and there's this crazy museum, and I'm like, wow, okay. And then the second experience at Wellesley College was because I was invited by actually not me, a colleague of mine that was visiting from Chile. She's a freaking crazy, amazing human and smart and artist and theoretician and writer. And so she was invited by the Spanish department, and she was like, "Can you come with me? Because I don't know anything." I was like, "Oh, sure." Well, and so that was my other experience, and this was the year before, and so like Wellesley became part of my this place is interesting, and then this thing happened, and I applied, and they liked me.
Actually, the second part of that question is, what brought you to your practice in general?
Oh, shoots. Okay, that's. Okay, so I don't know. Like, I've been doing this since I was very tiny. I mean, I grew up in a family where there's people doing art and people that are like playing piano, and so I was privileged in that way. And also, I grew up in a family that had come, like, there are two sides, right? Like one side, which is the artist side, that had like kind of, lived a pretty miserable economic life, and lived in like, how do you call those, like boarding houses and stuff like that? But they had a piano. Right, and the piano is the most kind of precious possession, but that's it. So a piano and a cow, and that was that. And then on the other side, there's kind of the most posh part of the family that were sort of like, and I really kind of related to these other people, and so, and I also like had the privilege of seeing that yes, you sometimes choose the difficult route, but it's the route that makes you happy. So I had the privilege of having the opportunity of choice because those realities were presented to me since very early. So that's where the practice comes. And then the love for material is, I think, is responsive. Sorry, I'm going to just say it very fast. But there's one artist that sort of like blew my mind. In Chile, I grew up in a dictatorship. And there was this one artist, Lottie Rosenfeld, that sadly died recently, and she went out in the streets and put sort of like a fabric, like almost like a bandage, right, on top of the in the streets, the continuous line and then the not continuous line that allows you to pass a car. I don't know how you call that.
Dashes.
Yeah, those things. And she kind of, rather than, she puts this kind of bandage across it, creating a cross. And the piece is known as a mile of crosses over the pavement. And this happens completely like, underground, nobody sees it, but all of a sudden these crosses appear. Like we're like seeing the people disappearing and people being tortured as an authoritarian regime, and just the changing of materiality and the sort of like the mutating something that is so recognizable that you kind of take a sign that you take like that, right? But all of a sudden, like its materialities change a little bit, and it's kind of and there's a new context added, like Bloom, like it was so like, and I was a baby, but that piece became so famous as I was growing up that like that the power of that simple gesture is just, like you want to be part of that. And I think that's also part of like what happened with this piece at the Davis. Like, okay, what happens when a word has a body? It's not just a sign, but it kind of has this gravitas to it, and it has, thousands of years of being in the formation. Okay, that's it. Done. I talk a lot, sorry.
I'll just follow up because I also grew up in a dictatorship. I'm a little, like, we're about the same age generation, and I grew up in Bolivia, and all of Latin America was kind of had the same kind of social problems. And for me, it was a piece called Tucumán Arde that was an Argentinian kind of collective. Eventually, I saw it in film, but it was it was a collective performance art piece focused on this city and focused on the changes in this like mainly agrarian city where they were the biggest resource was sugar farming, but that military government at the time had brought in all these American corporations like Ford and other corporations like taking over, and a group of artists, basically you can't, it was kind of so you can't openly critique the government or its practices. So just like the Lottie Rosenfeld piece, they did a research-based project where they interviewed people, went to the archives and documented everything that was happening in this one city, focused on the small city in Argentina, and kind of created this huge archive, kind of as a visual manifest of what was of what the country was going through at the time. And so I saw that piece very young, and to me, and I was like focused on studying architecture, and I wanted to build things, but that piece like actually took an entire city and made the city a piece of work that eventually could only be seen through like somebody my age, through film, right? Like through documentation. I wasn't there. I wasn't even living in Argentina. I was next door. But that to me like kind of blended these two practices and how these two forms of art making can actually not just tell you about history, but remain kind of as a document of what's happening in an unofficial kind of document, and not the official story as narrated by whatever government's in place.
My story is a little bit different. I grew up in a different part of the U.S., and I went to public schools, and I didn't find them particularly challenging, and I did a lot of reading on my own, so I sort of worked my way through the art books in the public library, and I realized as a high school student I could get a library card to the local university library. So I started checking out lots of art books. And I remember distinctly sitting in my high school physics class reading, it was Picasso one week and Monet the next and Matisse the week after that. And I had a terrific high school art teacher. I had some really wonderful high school English teachers. And I applied to Bryn Mawr sort of on a lark. I didn't really know what it was actually going to be like, but a couple of strokes of good fortune, I ended up going to school there. And once in that small liberal arts women's college environment, I knew that my life was going to change in all kinds of ways. And I think that's part of what then led me to seek out Wellesley. And some of my mentors had recommended Wellesley and the resources in the library and the book arts lab and the art department to me. So it was through some introductions that I arrived here in the late 90s and started teaching some workshops in the book arts lab. And over 25 years later, I've worked my way through the Pendleton renovation, the Clapp renovation, and I've had the opportunity to work with a number of amazing colleagues and generations of students. I feel really privileged, and I feel like I've been lucky because this is a place that's always challenged me, but also given me opportunities to grow. Have I answered the question? Okay.
I forgot to answer how I came to Wellesley, and I'll just say it because it's a good story. I was teaching. I was invited to a visiting teaching gig at MIT for 2 years, and at MIT, my favorite students were Wellesley students, and so and just coincidentally, in my second year, this job opened up, and I actually jumped on it because the students don't disappoint still, 10 years later.
So this is the interactive part of the round rectangle table. It's a terrible joke. Thank you. We want to open it up to the audience because your being here is making this possible. So if anyone has a question for our artists, please pop on down and we'll hand you the mic.
It's like a game show. You have to come to the front to ask the question.
I think I can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's gonna go on YouTube, so it's like the recording.
So each of you guys seem to have works that work well in conversation with each other, but that are different. How has your conception of your work changed now that they've become in conversation with each other?
Well, I can start, but because I like talking. No, seriously. Like I think what is cool about the faculty exhibition, what I think is interesting about the faculty exhibition is that it's a different type of curatorial project. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nikki. But basically, we are forced on you. Right? No. But hear me. Like we're forced on the curators in a way. Like right. Like this is what comes with the territory. Like, and each of us has really different practices, and each of that has different types of research, and so your job is to actually kind of put us in conversation. We talk a lot to each other in other different ways, but not necessarily like through work collaboration. And so when you see it all together, I feel like it's a different type of exhibition. The work gets louder because it's also kind of operating by contrast, right? And so like the themes of the works, or like the materialities of the work, or the process of the work become louder, and in that kind of loud aspect, that kind of noisier aspect, maybe when we start kind of seeing connections that we have maybe not seen before. Make sense? So that's my very small answer.
Sure, I'll add in that my spouse is incredibly supportive of my work, and I'm really appreciative of that. And he thinks it's incredibly cool that my work is up within sight of an Andy Warhol box because of Andy's work. And like somehow in our 30 years together, this is like the height of my artistic achievement.
Well, but also it's right in front of Dave Olsen. And like it's so, like your work is delicate and quiet and sophisticated and super loaded with history. And then you have this sort of like screaming, loud, graphic thing. Like, I think that's kind of the interesting thing in a good way.
That was intentional.
Like, and then both things are, kind of holding their weight under space.
And if I can just add from my perspective with that choice, when I was talking to Nicole about that in, say, May or June of last year, and she was saying, we're going to have Dave's big mural and then your work, I thought, okay, well, I trust you. I have to go move the Book Arts Lab back to Clap now, so whatever you decide, it would be great.
Yeah, and I think it's actually, it's a really hard job for the curator, right? Because like you said, it's not only imposed, but then we all have very strong opinions about what we want to show or what's like not going to work there. Someone like me, I'm really difficult with all the technology. I know, I'm kind of a nightmare for the Davis, but they did such a fantastic job, right? But it's also like it takes the curator to see how Dave's piece like really is in great dialogues with my piece, and then like Genevieve's paintings next door are really in great dialogue with my piece. Like, I mean, I'm like, and all these things, there's no way I would have known this, right? So that's a lot on the curator, and a great job.
Thank you, but I will say it was a delight to work with all of you, and I can say that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Any other questions? I am going to pass you the mic because of the recording, but I did see a hand around here. Did you change your mind? Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you guys have a specific event in your life or experience that's kind of like acted as a catalyst for like really acting on being an artist instead of kind of being stagnant, I think, in the way of choosing to dedicate your life to being an artist.
I have one. Me too. I have a really good one. This is my origin story. It's really cool. Sorry. So, I was 8, actually. I'm sorry, I'm going back there, but it is true. And some students know this story. I was 8, and we were moving houses. We had been living in this rental, and we were moving to our supposed forever home. And in that house, I had lived like pretty traumatic experiences. So there was an aspect of me leaving that place that was sort of like, finally. And when the truck came, and this is not like the moving trucks that you know, guys. Okay, like you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's like friends and pickup trucks, and that get kind of filled with stuff. And well, when that kind of started to happen, furniture started to be removed, and every single piece of furniture that was at my sister's height, who was 4, had been traced with a marker on the walls. So every time you removed a piece of furniture, there was a trace of the piece of furniture on the wall, which almost killed my parents because, that meant they had to pay more money to repair the rental. And we slept in the same room, and we had these kind of really intricate beds that were horrible. I don't know why my mom decided that those were good beds. It was a kind of really rococo things in the back, and she had gone carefully with a marker through the whole thing, and so you remove the beds and they were there. And I thought that it's the same thing. It's like just one little thing that can completely transform everything, and it's so loaded with meaning, and I don't need to use any words. I'm sold. It's a cool story. Sorry, I had to share it. You have a good one?
I don't. Not like that, no. I actually think that's a great question, because I don't know any time that I didn't know that I was going to make something. So I thought I wanted to build buildings. And I wasn't that good at drawing, so I kind of forced myself to draw. But I was really good at technical drawings. Anyway, but I don't remember any time thinking I'm going to be a doctor or an astronaut, I just knew I wanted to make something. And so I think when you get to high school and, you know, you choose a career and then you like hit things along the way and things kind of take you from one place to another. But I had all sorts of jobs in between my architecture background and like my MFA, but I always knew, like, I think at the beginning I didn't know how it would end up, but I just knew that I was going to be an artist of some kind. So that's not that interesting. Sorry.
It was very interesting. I think I'll say two things. One, don't be frightened of the impractical choice. When I went to Bryn Mawr, I chose to be a philosophy major, which seemed impractical, but it means I can think and read and write about a lot of different things with confidence. And then when I went and got an MFA in the book arts in the late 90s, when the death of the physical book was imminent, that was a really impractical choice. But for me, it was just the most interesting thing I could think of. So I went and did it with faith that something would work out. So don't be afraid of the impractical choice. And then second, I think my commitment to the book arts has been reinforced over the years by lots of little small things. And while I was working on the series of broadsides that's in the show, I was also doing research into the history of the bibliographical press movement and the history of founding of places like the Book Arts Lab. And I did a lot of research into Hannah French, who founded the Book Arts Lab here at Wellesley, and a man named Carl Rollins, who founded a book arts teaching press at Yale. And my work in their archives was sort of like going and reading the letters that my book arts grandparents had written and left for me to come find when I needed some reassurance. And so I actually published a scholarly monograph last year about Carl Rollins, and that's kind of the scholarly project that's behind the creative work in the Davis.
Amazing. Thank you. Those were all excellent and interesting stories. Thank you. Our last question before we all go celebrate the reopening is, to the extent you wish to share, what are you working on next? And how does it either extend from the work that we're seeing in the Davis or depart from it?
I know you have a great story.
No, that like this
You do.
My sister's story is good. No, I'm making more frescoes. I'm making more frescoes. I have a mini incubator or fresco barn or greenhouse built inside my studio. Super cool to go see. I control temperature and I control humidity so that my babies can grow and not crack. And I am having the time of my life making them.
We are going to invite ourselves back to your studio because both of our eyes lit up as you were describing that.
Super fun. I also have a lift, a scissor lift in my studio.
Cool. I want to come too.
Field trip to Daniela's studio. I'm thinking a lot about the importance of libraries, access to knowledge and information, democracy, maybe making an artist book. I'm involved in the Clinton Center's Faculty and Staff Research Initiative right now, trying to work some of these ideas out. So maybe for 2030, I'll have an artist book for the curators.
So cool. I just finished shooting probably like the largest piece I've shot, and so I'm about to edit it. And I went to the place that, if you know me, I'm like the most city person that you've ever known, and I always end up shooting in these places that are like really hard. Like it was such a hard trip. It's in the salt flats in Bolivia at 5,000 feet. It's 5,000 meters, so that's like 16,000 feet above sea level. Like there's no, it's amazing. But so how does it differ from this piece is that my work is always either landscape or, you know, urban city location, right? Like a place. And this is the most incredible place that I've ever been to. It's in Bolivia. It's salt flats, and then there are like volcanoes with lava just like purpling from underground. And it's abstracted landscape. That's all I can say.
No oxygen.
and there's no oxygen. It's really amazing, but it was such a hard trip. I'm never going back, so that's I'm glad I went, but I'm never going back.
Well, it will live forever in your next work. You don't have to. None of us do. No, I'm just kidding. With that, we are going to wrap up. I want to very, very sincerely thank all of the artists for participating. You all have very busy schedules. Thank you for making time for us. And I want to thank Dr. Semente for running this with me and all of you for being here. So go enjoy the opening.